Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of World Builders Nexus. Today we are going to be talking about the Queen's Rebellion. That is a military conflict in the Riverlands between House Visseri and House Myrell, who at the time was the ruling faction in the Western Kingdoms of Eratsael. And this is a continuation of what we talked about last week with Oxguard. Oxguard, as a whole, sort of introduces this military conflict, and we are going to be fleshing that out today. I've spent the last week writing all of this, and I hope you guys enjoy. So if you do, like, comment, and subscribe. But now getting into the Queen's Rebellion. The Queen's Rebellion, again, was a military conflict, more specifically a rebellion against House Myrell, who at the time was the ruling family of Eratsael, and it was led by Marabeth Vale Visseri, who was really a no-name member of House Visseri, which was a minor house in Eratsael at the time. The conflict spanned for 4 years, and it resulted in the destruction of House Myrell and the crowning of Marabeth Vale Visseri as the first queen of Western Eratsael. So the Queen's Rebellion was really started on the 6th of Manus, 5783 after Solomon's reign, when Lady Marabeth Vale Visseri of a big city called Mirren declared war against the ruling family of Western Eratsael, House Myrell. So she declared war, and she also declared herself the true queen of Eratsael, and she did this because of a recent law that was passed by the Myrell ruling family that declared Western Eratsael as this kingdom of humans, and he began deporting Easterners, which was a really huge deal because the West has been kind of this melting pot society for generations. That was Solomon's idea. King Solomon was this sort of Christ-like figure in the lore, and we'll talk more about him next week when we introduce Solonism. But for now, just know that he was a king of Eratsael that many people to this day still worship. He ruled about 5,700 years ago, and his dream was to unite the East and West. But getting back into the Queen's Rebellion, while Lady Marabeth Vale Visseri was ready to ride to battle, the king wasn't. He was busy in Elise, which is where he ruled from. Elise is sort of the capital city of Western Eratsael. He was busy dealing with this uprising of the merchant class that was secretly being led by Clan Mirabal, which was Clan Mirabal was sort of this very noble merchant family that was destroyed during what they called the Night of the Boiled Tears. So this was King Moff Myrell's sort of his reaction when he found out that Clan Mirabal was secretly doing this as a diversionary tactic to aid the Visseri claimed the crown. King Moff Myrell sent his son, Prince Moff Myrell II, and a group of men, and they stormed the embassy of Clan Mirabal, and they were basically sent there to kill everybody. Nobody was supposed to survive, and the embassy was torched to the ground. Some people did escape, and Clan Mirabal has since rebuilt, but that was a huge, a huge sort of deal for them. It took them a couple generations to rebuild. By the time that King Moff Myrell had quelled the merchant uprising and took down Clan Mirabal, Marabeth Visseri had already led her armies all the way across the eastern half of the Riverlands, taking every major town from Hastersend to Harhal. But with the merchant class dealt with, Myrell was ready to fight, and he had the biggest army. Myrell had about 80,000 men versus the Queen's 21,000, so he had a pretty huge advantage, even though that she now had the defensive advantage with control of all these towns. The first major battle happened on the 13th of Canis, 5785 after Solomon's reign, and it took place just south of Fool's End outside of Castle Mern. So Queen Visseri was pushing her way westward, trying to get to Elise, where she could, hopefully fight Myrell right outside of Elise, and she could try to siege the position. But she had the bulk of her forces garrisoned inside of Castle Mern, which was her most recent victory, and Myrell surrounded the keep and began to attempt a siege. While getting this siege set up, Marabeth Vale Visseri, completely defied expectations and rode out and met Myrell's forces head on just outside the keep, and she lost. He had way more soldiers, and it was very brave of her, but she was forced to retreat. While the move was a success, she was able to get out, and the battle is now called the Queen's Escape. She was forced to garrison forces in the various cities and towns along the way in order to maintain speed. So right now, Visseri is on the run, and her forces are split, and Myrell is traveling east with his forces to Mirren to end this war for good. So during the finale of the rebellion, Visseri was on the defensive, fighting off Myrell raids as the people of Mirren began to starve and revolt. On the 21st of Fratis, 5786, Visseri gave a speech in front of the people of Mirren, which today is called the Queen's Speech, and it was a huge success. Within a week, 4,000 people joined her army. In addition, all these revolts and uprisings within the town were quelled. The people were starving, but after the speech, they realized that this war was worth fighting. Before the speech, there were attempts being made on her life. There were clans and groups rising up. There was even a kidnapping attempt where they were going to try to capture Visseri and send her to Myrell to face his, justice. But luckily, all of that was stopped by the speech. So while Visseri was busy in Mirren quelling rebellions and things, Myrell was actually seeing a lot of battlefield success. So he took back Foxham, which, Foxham is a major city in my world, and taking it back was a big deal. But he took it back while maintaining the siege on Mirren, which was huge because he was able to continue to starve out Visseri's forces, maintaining those uprisings, while also, getting back a huge military strategic position of his own. His success lasted until the month of Caddis 5787, when 2,100 Visseri soldiers rode northeast from Harhal to Mirren, and they attacked the Myrells camped outside of the city of Mirren. So while the king was seeing all the success, he had kind of forgotten about Harhal. Harhal is a medium size. It's more of a town than a city. Marabeth Vale Visseri had stationed some troops there during the Queen's escape, and Myrell had kind of forgotten about them, and they are now riding northeast to try this suicide mission to try to gain Myrell's attention. So when their forces met for the last time, Visseri had 2,100 forces riding northeast and about 15,000 in forces inside of the city of Elise. Meanwhile, King Moff had about 60,000 that was surrounding Elise. When the 2,100 hit, it was a pretty huge deal. No one saw it coming. They hadn't really scouted out in that direction because there was no real need to. And so they did get the surprise attack they wanted. And Visseri capitalized by sending her troops out the gates, and the forces met again, very similar to the Battle of Queen's Escape earlier in the war. But this time, the king was, just shredded. They didn't see it coming. They were all camped out. They didn't have their armor on. They weren't ready. And it just was a pretty rough turn of events for the king. He was forced to retreat back to Elise, where he was closely followed by Visseri. The final battle would be fought just outside of Elise. So after Moff's last stand, which was the name given to the final battle, Queen Visseri took the throne of Western Eratsael and became the first queen to rule over the nations. Survivors of House Myrell were arrested and executed, while other enemies of the Visseri crown were either killed or imprisoned. House Hurst of the North, whom fought with Myrell against Visseri, was tried and found innocent. Queen Visseri took back the village of Oxgard, which is the village we're currently talking about, under Riverland's rule, and therefore was able to tax it herself, and it was a nice little haven for her troops. But she did leave the north to House Hurst. She recognized his honor in the rebellion, that he felt he had to fight for the king because he swore fealty to him. Clan Mirabeth, they were the ones who were decimated during the Night of Boiled Tears. They kind of rebuilt the early years of Visseri rule and are now once again a successful merchant guild. House Rykar and House Dirk fought with Visseri, and Rykar was given the Gale while Dirk was given the Hold. And yeah, the Western Kingdoms of Eratsael have saw relative peace since then until Aaron's Rebellion, which we'll get into in the future. I really hope you guys enjoyed. This is, again, what we're talking about because this sort of idea of the Queen's Rebellion is introduced via the city of Oxgard. And so I wanted to go ahead and flesh that out so that was understood. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out the next video.